The purpose of my talk today is to give all of us hope, but also to place responsibility in each of us for our future. I'll start with responsibility. A couple of years ago, I was invited to a conference in Scotland. The conference was organized by Polish students studying in the UK. As you know, over the last couple of years, thousands of young, bright, talented people left our country, and they study in some of the finest universities, not only in the UK, but also around the world. And every year, they organize a conference, and during this conference, they ask themselves really important questions. We are migrants. What should we do? Should we come back to our country? Should we move on, or should we stay? What patriotism means. So I was invited to this conference, and at the beginning of it, there was a panel discussion in which I took part. And as I wanted to start my talk, I looked at the audience, and I saw a lot of young faces. So I decided to give advice. This is something that I really rarely do. And I told them the following: look, if you want to achieve something in your life, it's good to have that approach. Look at the reality as it is. Try to find what's good in this reality and build from it. And then I also added that if we look through those lenses, we can actually say that there are good things in this wave of immigration from Poland. That actually there are thousands of people who acquired really wonderful education in some of the best universities in the world. And if we do our job, our work in our country, we may potentially use this resource. They have acquired important human capital, but also cultural capital and relational capital that can be brought back to create a better future for our country. So after the panel, we had a little discussion, and just towards the end, an older man stood up. He was not a student, he was just a guest to the conference. And he started to shout at me. He said, "How dare you? How dare you tell these young people that there is anything positive in the fact that thousands of young, talented people left our country? This is one of the biggest brain drains in the modern history of our country. How dare you tell them that there is anything good?" And as you can imagine, everyone was moved, and there was a silence in the room. But the discussion was over, and I couldn't respond. Fortunately, at the end of the conference, I had a lecture. And I remember vividly, I went to the podium like this one. I stood in front of the audience, I looked, and then in this very moment, I saw that man. He was somewhere in the middle of the room. And I said, "Look, I want to respond to you. I want to tell you that I am not happy that thousands of young, talented people left our country. I'm the last one to be happy. But you need to understand something. You need to understand that it's already happened. It's already done. Can you see that black hole? When you now start crying, complaining to these British universities that open up their gates, nothing is going to change. You're not going to change your life, you're not going to change the life of your family, and you're not going to change anything in your country. The only thing you can do right now is to take responsibility for it if you choose so. Look at the reality as it is. Try to find what's good in this reality and build from it. People who change the world, they take responsibility for this world. And also these people, which I think is so important to every one of us who commits to doing something difficult, they have a special relationship to problems because there will be a lot of problems on our way when we start doing something. In some ways, for them, problems are not problems. Somehow, for them, problems are part of their plan. And that's a significant difference. It's like they live in and act in a different paradigm. Most of the people live in a paradigm which says problems shouldn't be. So if you have that paradigm, whenever you encounter a problem, we are unhappy and upset and complain because problems shouldn't be. Yet it's possible to build a larger paradigm in our mindset which says problems are. Problems exist. And they will exist always when we're trying to do something. And in fact, the bigger the goal, the bolder ideas we have, the bigger the problems we're going to face. Problems are. I'd like to share a metaphor with you. Imagine a forest. All of you have been into the forest. So imagine a man standing in that forest in place A, and he wants to go to place B, over there. And he starts his journey, he takes a step forward, and there's a tree, and he says, "Hey, tree, what are you doing here?" And he takes another step, and "Hey, tree," and he complains, "Why are you standing here? I want to go to B, and you're standing here." And then another step, "What are you doing?" Doesn't make sense? It doesn't make sense to us, and it's so obvious because we simply see a man who does not understand the nature of the forest. It's a collection of trees. Yet, we need to realize that quite often in our lives, we behave like that man. We go through life, which is our forest, and in life there are problems, as there are trees in the forest. And our job is to just go around them, given the goal or given the challenge that we want to tackle. And some problems are really overwhelming. I want to come back to this man from the conference in Scotland, because he was pointing to something really, really significant for our country. And it's depicted to some extent on this map. Here you can see European countries ranked in terms of the number of universities that they have in the top 500 universities in the world. And if you look carefully at this map, you will see that the UK has about 60. Germany has about 44. And a tiny little Estonia, a beautiful country of 1.2 million people, less than Warsaw, has one. And our country, according to this ranking, none. 0. There are two other rankings, and they show 1 or 2, but given the size of the country, given the talent that we have, both on the side of scientists, but also on the side of students, enormous talent, we can legitimately ask ourselves, what is going on? Why are we doing so poorly? I believe that tackling this problem is one of the most important challenges that we face as a country, as a nation. I also believe that when we look into the future, when we look beyond our daily struggles, our daily fights, this is one of the most beautiful things that our generation can do if we can, to some extent, fix it. And it's going to be difficult. On my part, I would like to create a world-class university in our country, to build a more prosperous Poland, but also to advance humanity. I do believe that we as Poles, we have to start thinking more not only about ourselves, but also what we can bring to the world. And in some ways, this university already exists. And it does not only exist in the hearts of many people. It has its own first program. We call it Leadership Academy for Poland. Every year, nearly 20 candidates apply for one spot. And one of the most beautiful things around this is that a lot of Poles studying in Oxford, Harvard, Cambridge, they apply to us and come to Poland to acquire education. And most recently, we've created a methodology where we allow them, but actually citizens, to meet and solve everyday problems, whatever they face, so that this reality in which we live gets better. And I want to invite you to join, to be with us, in particular when we care about education in our country. But if you believe that there are some other challenges that are more important to our country, or that you care about some other problems, I want to tell you this. Go and confront them. Take responsibility for them. Look at the reality as it is and build from that reality. And the last thing I want to tell you, because it's going to be difficult, is this. Never, never underestimate the value of your contribution, even if it's the smallest one. Because all the big things has always been created from small and tiny little initiatives. And I also think it's important for us to realize that whenever we confront a challenge, whenever we take a challenge, we never create a guarantee of a success. But only when we confront a challenge, we create a possibility of it. And living in a possibility, I think, is to live fully, both for an individual, but also for us collectively as a country. And creating possibilities also brings hope. Thank you.